Iggy, Peck, architect. Here's Iggy Peck, a second grader. He loves to draw pictures of building because he wants to become an architect when he grows up. And here's his teacher, Miss Lila Greer, and she does not like architecture. She had something bad happen to her when she was a little girl that makes her not like architecture. All this book, the book jacket's designed on graph paper because an architect would draw their blueprints on graph paper. That's their design. The story is written by Andrea Beatty and illustrated by David Roberts. So Andrea Beatty wrote the words and David Roberts drew the pictures. Iggy Peck, architect. Young Iggy Peck is an architect and has been since he was 2, when he built a great tower in only an hour out of nothing but diapers and glue. Oh, that poor little naked baby butt. He took off all his dirty diapers. "Good gracious, Ignatius," his mother exclaimed. "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen." But her smile faded fast as the light wind blew past, and she realized those diapers weren't clean. "Ignatius, my son, what on earth have you done? That's disgusting and nasty. It stinks." But Iggy was gone. He was out on the lawn, using dirt clods to build a great sphinx. Sphinx is from ancient Egypt. So here he is at 2 years old, building that out of sand. When Iggy was 3, his parents could see his unusual passion would stay. He built churches and chapels from peaches and apples, and temples from modeling clay. At dinner one night, to his father's delight, Iggy got a bright gleam in his eye, and out on the porch built the St. Louis Arch from pancakes and coconut pie. Here's the St. Louis Arch. Dear Ig had it made until 2nd grade, when his teacher was Miss Lila Greer. On the very first day, she had this to say: "We do not talk of buildings in here. Gothic or Romanesque, I couldn't care less about buildings, ancient or new." She said in her lecture about architecture that it had no place in grade 2. But look at Iggy in the back of the room. He's making a building. And here are his classmates. And 2 of these classmates you're going to hear from. Here's Rosie Revere, engineer. You will hear about her in theater with Miss Logan. And here is Ada Twist, scientist. You'll hear about her in science class. And there's Miss Lila Greer again. That might seem severe, but she was sincere. For when she was no more than 7, she'd had a great fright at a dizzying height in a building so tall it scraped heaven. On an architect's tour of the 95th floor, young Lila got lost from the group. She was found 2 days later, stuck in an elevator, eating cheese with a French circus troupe. After that day, it's quite safe to say, she thought all building lovers were nuts. As a teacher, she taught that above all one ought avoid them, no ifs, ands, or buts. As you might guess, it would cause Iggy stress to hear such terrible talk. But he didn't hear. He sat in the rear while building a castle of chalk. Everybody's kind of watching to see. "You, Iggy Peck, your desk is a wreck. Tear down that castle right now. You will not build in here. Is that perfectly clear? Do you need to see Principal Howe?" No, ma'am, Iggy said. He lowered his head. His heart sank down to the floor. With no chance to build, his interest was killed. Now, second grade was a bore. After 12 long days that passed, in a haze of reading, writing, and arithmetic, Miss Greer took the class to Blue River Pass for a hike and an old-fashioned picnic. Finally, they get to go out and do something. They crossed an old trestle to a small island nestle in the heart of a burbling stream. But no sooner passed than the footbridge collapsed, and Miss Lila Greer started to scream. We're trapped here, oh my! Alas, kids, goodbye! Her eyeballs rolled back into her head. She dropped to the ground with a vague groaning sound, luckily fainted, not dead. What would you do if you were these students? What would you do? Tell your neighbor, what would you do if you were here with your classmates, your teacher has fainted, the footbridge has collapsed, and you have no way to get back? The class was amazed. They stood there quite dazed, uncertain of what to do. But one bright young man was off hatching a plan, and it started with Miss Lila Greer's shoe. Soon each lad and lass, that means boy and girl, there at Blue River Pass was working together as one. And when she came to, Miss Lila Greer knew that something quite brave had been done. She looked in the air and saw hanging there a structure with cables and braces, and on the far side, beaming with pride, were 17 smiling young faces. Boots, tree roots, and strings, fruit roll-ups and things, some of which should not mention, were stretched from ridge to ridge in glorious bridge, dangling from shoestring suspension. It all became clear to Miss Lila Greer as she crossed that bridge over the stream. There are worse things to do when you're in grade 2 than to spend your time building a dream. Now every week at Blue River Creek Elementary in second grade, all the school kids can hear, along with Miss Greer, how the world's greatest buildings were made. The weekly guest speaker in t-shirt and sneakers talks of buildings from Rome to Quebec. Of course he's the guy who builds towers from pies. That brilliant young man, Iggy Peck.